10-minute daily reality check for Friday. Man, I love Fridays. You know, walking in right now to the studio is the Olga twins, Olga 1 and Olga 2. Hey, Olga, let me ask you a question, okay? So if there was one thing you would change about the way people think, what would it be?
The racism.
They're what? Really? Racists. So do you find there's just too many racists out in LA?
Yes, a lot.
Who are they prejudiced against? Because I know there was always a lot of racial tension in LA.
It's many different people, many, and exactly. But sometimes more white people.
White people, right? Yeah, white
Yeah.
people suck. Right? Except for me, right?
You are wonderful, my friend, and him.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how many years, so if you had to tell my audience one secret about me, you've known me since 2002? Take away those 2 years from Seattle, right?
Yes, I remember.
What would be the one thing that you could tell people that they don't know about me that they should know about me?
Oh my God, my friend, you have many good things, but the secret?
The secret.
Oh my God.
Come on.
You are lovely, daddy. Good man. You have big heart. Oh, and a woman.
Yes. All the women, right?
Yes.
There were a lot of women, huh?
Yes, a lot of women. This is my secret.
Yes, a lot of women. Olga was always...
Women.
Yes, and it was always, you were always see no evil, hear no evil. Olga would always look at the girl like they're sprawled out on the bed coming in. Olga would be like, hi, I'm here. It's okay. Yeah, you've always kept my secrets really well.
Yes.
You have, I know.
Yes.
I know.
Zipper.
You got the zipper, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the court of David would come through. You'd be able to tell a lot of people things.
Yeah. Huh?
Yeah, and you
Yes.
saw lots of then you saw the bad relationship too. We won't talk about that.
Nope.
No.
Nope.
All right, so Brett and I are going to finish this. So listen, Brett, we've got something today. That's always interesting. So Olga's been cleaning my house for 12 years, and she's been cleaning yours for how long?
About a year now, a year and a half.
The stories that she can tell. Imagine if, before you dated somebody, you got to interview the maid, right? The cleaning person, the gardener, the ex-boyfriend, the ex-girlfriend.
The pet. What if you could talk to someone's pet?
Holy shit.
What would that reveal?
That'd be unbelievable. Excuse me, Lassie. I'd like to know, am I really the best in bed that she's ever had? Has she moaned with me more than she moaned with everybody else?
What does she look like without makeup on?
Right. What else? What is she doing in bed without me? How often does she masturbate?
That's the best one, right? That's what we all want to know.
Right. Hey, Lassie, what's hidden in the bottom drawer? I don't want to snoop, but you know what's in there. And by the way, what does she eat late at night? You know, because it seems like she gains a lot of weight, but tells me she doesn't eat anything. So I don't understand her. What is he doing late at night in that bed? You know, they tell you they don't watch TV, but why is the TV always warm? Lassie, what do you think?
Right. Is she anorexic? What does she do? Does she talk to her mom all the time? Is she talking to old boyfriends? What's going on?
Holy shit, if dogs could talk, that would be some reality. That would be a reality check, because let me tell you, we watched Saturday or Sunday, her daughter came in and wanted to watch a movie, right, in the morning. So she wanted to watch Santa Paws. Okay, so Santa Paws is some puppy that helps Santa, I guess, with the presents. George Wendt. Remember George Wendt?
Of course. Cheers.
Right. Wow, did his career fall. So he was starring in this movie as Santa Claus. He looked miserable the whole time because his co-stars were talking dogs. There's nothing creepier to me than talking dogs in movies.
Dogs are creepy?
When they talk, when their mouths are moving, right? You know, and they're talking, they're constantly moving their mouth, and they're having full sentences. That freaks me out.
That freaks you out.
Freaks me out.
All right.
So, stories. We all have them.
We do.
Okay? There's a phrase that we use often when someone gives us their story, especially when it comes down to coaching. You know, thank you for sharing that story with me. How is it still serving you, right?
Exactly. How does this story serve you and how really what you're asking is, how is this story stopping you? Because our stories tend to limit us, right? Because really we don't have limits except for the ones in our head. And usually our limiting beliefs, which we talk about a lot, come from our stories.
Where our stories originate from, because we talked about it last week in Montauk about Pavlov, right? It was Pavlov mom, Pavlov dad, Pavlov grandpa, Pavlov grandmother. A lot of our stories, a lot of our eating habits, a lot of our emotional habits, a lot of our sexual habits are all stories that were implanted in us from our childhood. How do we find, or stories from past relationships, right? How do we get past those stories or look in the story mirror and say, story on the wall, how do you no longer serve me after all?
Well, what is that story showing you, right? What is that story telling you? Well, and it's going to show up in your life, right? Like, the problem is that we keep, like, we've talked about resistance, persistence, what you keep hearing, what you keep seeing, the lessons that life wants you to learn, right? So your story is going to come back at you in an unexpected way, right? And then you say, oh, wow, that story doesn't serve me anymore, right? Then you've broken through your story. And it's not just your parents, it's your relationships, it's everything that goes into your stories. And some people hold on to, like, oh, well, I got to have, a certain amount of kids, or I have to have, a husband who does this, or a boyfriend who does this, or a girlfriend who's like that, or, I never got enough love in my marriage, so I'm going to make sure I get enough love now, right? Well, okay, but life changes day to day, so how is that story serving you now, or is it creating a problem where there shouldn't be one?
Yeah, it's interesting because those stories, you're right, they keep coming back. There's so many women that I've met over the age of 40 that picked the wrong man, got involved in a wrong relationship, their own fucking fault as much as the man's fault, because we're all 50-50. In our story, we're all not the villain or the victim, okay? And that's where a lot of stories come in. There's a lot of stories that I hear from people where they're the villain is always the ex, the victim is always them, right? So you hear that story, you chose that person, and now there's a lot of women that you and I have coached, and a lot of we've met that are 40 and they just want another kid so desperately, and they got to have it right away, and they feel so angry because they were taken down the wrong path by that man, and that man only gave them one child, and they wanted more children. That man stole. I mean, you hear the way, and a lot of women have said that, and a lot of men too. People have stolen the best years of their lives.
Yeah, I heard that. My mother used to say that crap all the time, and it was bullshit. She was responsible too, but what happens is that a lot of times you get a knee-jerk reaction, right? Like when I got divorced, I jumped into a rebound relationship with a woman who I thought was so different from my ex, because I wasn't getting any love at home, I wasn't getting affection, I wasn't getting any sex, I wasn't getting any connection, I wasn't having deep, meaningful conversations. So I immediately fell in love with, or thought I fell in love with, this woman who was giving me all those things because of the story I was coming from. I was coming from out of this sense of lacking, like, oh, I wasn't getting enough. So then I met this woman, and she was giving me everything, like all the affection, all the sex, all the conversation, everything. And I was like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I want. So sometimes you can have a knee-jerk reaction and just go running in the opposite direction, which could be a good thing, and it could be, in my case, not such a good thing.
It's interesting because you're right. The story is always the lack. So the story needs to be, and this is something we talk about in coaching, the story needs to be a future story based on abundance. Because in relationships, it's almost like, well, you got your stories, they got their stories, and once you start unpeeling the levels of depth of each person, a story will be unfolded. All of a sudden, you'll be sitting around the kitchen table, and it will be story time.
Once you think about what you don't want, that's what's going to happen. So for a lot of us, we send those messages, I don't want this, I don't want that. Well, sorry, but the universe doesn't understand don't. We don't understand the word don't. So the thoughts in your head become what you get. So instead, what I coach people to do, and what you coach people to do, is to see the life that they want, see the person they want, the relationship they want, the sex that they want, the marriage that they want, whatever they want. See what they want. Think about what they want. And then you have somewhere to go. right? If you all you have is what you don't want, unfortunately, that's what you're going to see all the time, right? A lot of women, especially in their 40s, complain, I can't meet a good guy. They're all interested in younger women. They're not, I can't get a second date. I can't, the guys don't want to get married, blah, blah, blah. Well, if those are the things you think about, that's exactly who's going to show up in your life. But if you think, you know what, I want to meet a great guy, I want to get married, I want to settle down, I want somebody who I could spend the next 30 or 40 years with, well then, if you really think about it and focus on that, that's what you're going to start to see.
I think we're going to call this, Are You Still Stuck in Chapter 1? Because if you think about it, a lot of the stories happen in chapter 1 of our life. It happens during our childhood. It happens during the first few relationships, which is really chapter 1. I think we all live 4 chapters of our life. If you look at it, for every 20 years we live, if we live to 80, basically you and I right now are in the middle of chapter 3, right? Heading to chapter 4.
I thought I was in chapter 2. Wait, I don't want to get to chapter 3.
No, unfortunately, we're in chapter 3. I look at it as football. It's 4 quarters to life. So a lot of us are still stuck in the stories that happened during chapter 1 and chapter 2, where we had the relationships, our first relationships with our parents were created those stories, and then the lack of abundance that we had in our first relationship and the story that we have about the person that harmed us. Anyway, you got to look at your life. You got to decide how you want your life to be played out, and that's reality. Imagine that you can write the story of your life. Imagine, not what happened to you in the past where you're the victim and somebody's the villain, right? But imagine being able to write the love story, the success story, the money story, the abundance story of how you want your life to be. Today, you got a little bit of homework. Do it. Write it down, write your story, and then ask yourself, how far away are you? Brett and I believe you're only what percentage away?
10%. That's all it takes, a turn of the dial, 10%.
We're going to turn that dial every single day on the reality check. And if we got something for you, we got a dial turning something for you that you're going to have. So I strongly suggest, and I never promote anything on the podcast. I would like you to go to my website, sign up, and get on my email list, because Brett and I are going to be dial turning your life to literally give you the 10% solution very soon. And I strongly suggest that if you're somebody who wants to change the stories that have been plaguing you and create a new story, we've got the cool tools and the keys to give you that.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're a lot closer than you think. And whether you believe in God or whatever you believe in, your wildest dreams is what God wants for you, what your higher power wants for you, what the universe wants. Whatever you call it, it's your wildest dreams. Nobody wants anything less for you than that, and that's really what you should be aiming for.
Do you know when I was a kid, I'm going to end on this. God spelled backward, God, G-O-D, spelled backwards is? Dog. That's right. So if God is really a dog, I'd say God is a golden retriever. Pet me, love me, half stupid, half smart, right? Full of enthusiasm and constantly creating a new story every single day. They've got no memory whatsoever. None. So anyway, change your story, change your outcome. 10-minute daily reality check. Goodbye.